Hello.
I never know how to do these intros.
I think we need to come up with a scripted intro
I need to
because
get
maybe
back.
we
I
just
need to get back to my music. I need to get back to
no, do
that.
not do
Yeah.
that right now. No one wants to hear that right now.
All right, and we're back with another edition of FFU.
And
Not
today is episode 12 in
not to be
2025.
confused with FU. We are FFU over here. It's fun and it's fitness, and we're here to give you all the knowledge that you need to be awesome.
Okay, and today to make you work more awesome, we are going to be talking about trackers, but we've talked about trackers before. Last week we talked about tracking your heart rate. Today we're actually going to talk about tracking your workout.
So
Wah, wah, wah.
we're staying with the tech theme. We're talking about all things tech, but workout tracking doesn't necessarily need to be technical. It can be if you want it to be. But so here's the thing. Most people just kind of show up at the gym or wherever and they just do some stuff. And then they show up again a couple days later and they do some more stuff. Right? Maybe they saw like a really cool Instagram and the guy's like, "Oh, you should do like 5x5. All right, cool. I'll do 5x5 this today." And the next time, like you saw someone's like, "Oh no, like high endurance training is the way to go." So you're doing like sets of 25. Cool. Then you do sets of 25. So like this is all grand and great. And like most people will see results at the beginning because you're just like doing stuff, right?
And anything is better than nothing.
Correct.
So we are not saying that you cannot do any or all of these methods. We
No.
just are going to give you our experience in coaching clients for almost 20 years in each
Right.
individually and like what works.
So step one is just like track what you're doing, right? Back in the day, I used to have a little notebook that I would write in.
bet I still have one.
I could probably pull some up here while we're going, but I have notebooks dating back to when I was in high school, just tracking things. Because here's the thing, right?
I have the notebook from my first internship as a trainer when I was in college.
And you look back at those workouts. You look back at those workouts, and you're like, ooh.
You know what?
Ooh.
I don't feel like all of them are that bad.
Mm.
I don't think all of them are that bad.
Depends on what era you were doing it. So there's a principle in strength and conditioning, and if this is the only thing you take away from this episode, you will become a ninja.
A gym ninja.
You will become a gym ninja with this thing I'm about to tell you. I mean, this is secret stuff. And so like, don't go about sharing this with anybody. So there's a principle inside of strength conditioning that we have to adhere to in order for us to see progress. Okay. They teach us on day one of exercise science class. It is called progressive overload. And there is a fun story that goes along with this particular principle. And do you know that story, Ashley?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Do you know the story of Milo? Do you know the story of Milo?
I don't feel like I do.
Let's talk about the story of Milo. So there was a man named Milo. He lived in the hills of Greece, and he had himself a very small calf. And Milo was young at the time. The calf was young. Calf was small. And every day, Milo would pick up that calf, and he would carry that calf because the calf had it had some leg problems. It couldn't walk. So he'd pick up that calf and carry that calf all the way from the farm all the way into the town, so the calf could hang out with Milo and hang out and participate in all the fun town festivities. And then every day at the end of the day, he'd pick the calf up and he'd walk the calf back to the stable so the calf could sleep. And he would feed the calf so the calf would grow, right? And every day Milo would pick up the calf, and every day the calf would be just a little bit bigger because the calf would grow. And every day Milo, he would get a little bit bigger because he was carrying a calf that was a little bit bigger every day. And so this happened over years and years and years and years. And Milo became the largest human on the planet because every day he was carrying the calf. And by the end of it, he was carrying a full-blown cow. And so the story is better than that in the textbooks. But the whole principle behind it is we need to continue to do things that are harder than they were before. And so
So I don't know what part of this story is the most entertaining. The fact that on your first day in exercise science in college, you guys talked about progressive overload, because I know for a fact that was not on the agenda.
I don't know if it was that. All right.
And next, that I have never heard this story, and I've been in this industry for almost 20 years, and this is all brand new.
All right. So I'm going to tell you the actual. That was
No,
me.
no.
No.
You cannot.
I'm not going to tell you. This is an actual thing, like this Milo thing. That was my remembering of this like 20 years ago.
Why don't we just save it and put it in the comments for people to read?
Because just quickly, here. The story of Milo of Croton centers around this incredible strength and legendary training methods. The 6-time Olympic wrestling champion, Milo's story is often told through the legend of him carrying a calf daily from its birth until it became a full-size bull. This tale is used to illustrate the concept of progressive overload and the importance of continuous, gradual increase in training intensity.
All right. So what the whole theory means, if what Trevor said to you, you're like, what does this even do? This is someone doing the same exercise or same routine over and over and progressively making it harder every time they do the exercise or the workout. And this is what progressive overload is. It is the progressing of the exercise heavier each time.
And this doesn't need to just relate to strength training. Like this is cardio. This is any sort of like change on the body. It's easiest with strength training because there's a lot of variables that we'll talk about here in a second that we can progress,
manipulate,
because progression isn't all, we think of it as load all the time. I lift more weights, but that's just like one of many ways that we can create an overload or a progressive overload system. But how does this relate back to what we talked about at the beginning? Let's kind of close the loop here. Is if I don't know what I did last time, it's hard for me this time to do a little bit more, right? Or do things a little bit differently. So if I'm not tracking what I'm doing, it's hard for me to really apply this principle, which is like the overarching principle in everything that we do around strength and conditioning. And so that's where, if you take anything away from this, think progressive overload and think tracking. How you track is completely up to you. Pen and paper has worked since the beginning of time. But there are some cool like tech things that we use with our clients and that kind of stuff to ensure that we're doing it and just make our lives a little bit easier. And so let's first start and maybe we dedicate an entire episode to progressive overload because there is a lot that we can dive into. So you write that down.
Let's keep today's simple. Yep,
let's keep today's around tech. So, all right. You can use pen and paper, which is great. Just get yourself a nice little, I don't think I have any notebooks here, but like a little spiral binder notebook. Cool. Something small that fits in a gym bag, right? I like the spiral better than those bound ones because you can lay it flat then, which is kind of nice. And then you can write on it. None of us have this like fancy clip from the golden age that can keep it open, but
I love notebooks. Okay. Like it doesn't matter what world I live in. I love a notebook.
I like the spiral bound ones. Let me see if I have one here.
Do you want to know why Trevor likes a spiral bound notebook? Because he is not left-handed. And in case you guys didn't know, I am left-handed. I am not left-handed. All that made me think of was The Princess Bride when I know something you don't know. I am not left-handed. Okay.
Never
I hope you guys
never seen it. So
you made me watch Dumb and Dumber, and you still haven't watched my favorite movie of all time.
Wasn't funny for me.
Okay, so anyways, don't watch Dumb and Dumber. It's terrible. The Princess Bride, best movie of ever. Okay, so Trevor likes a spiral notebook. I like a flat one. It doesn't really matter what you use. The whole premise of this is
what should you write down?
Something.
What should you write down?
You should write down the exercises that you do.
Yes,
probably
the name
your
of
whole
them.
Entire workout. What? I mean, real name would be cool, but like whatever you call it works because you're the person in your notebook. I'm going to use the name and culture that Trevor has pushed upon me, and now everyone else in my life is stuck with it. You should write down your sets and your reps and the weight that you use for said sets and reps. So what I mean for this is that sometimes you are doing 4 sets. You might be doing the same reps for all of those. Sometimes you might be doing drop sets at different reps with increasing, like lots of variations. Okay. But you want your sets, your reps, the weight that you used. If you are using any kind of tempo or anything like that, you should also include that.
And then one other thing, if you want to, is like what we call an RPE. So rate of perceived exertion. And this is really helpful for the next time you come into something. So let's say you were doing 3x10 with a barbell back squat. Cool. And you got done and you're like, if a 10 was like, I could do 0 more reps, right? We would put a 10 there. Like the last rep, it was just grindy. Your like eyes were bloodshot when you were done, and you might have passed out for a second right after it was done. That's like a 10. That's seriously like a 10. Most people don't understand what a 10 is, but that's like a 10. And so a 9 would be like, I had 1 in the tank for sure, maybe 2 if I really
No,
had to
just
push
one.
it.
You know,
Probably
you
1. Probably
just
1.
you have one. You have
Probably
one in
1.
the tank, and maybe if
Yeah.
that one your form would
Yeah.
you're going to probably see a breakdown.
Yeah. So, and whenever we talk about failure too, we like to talk about like form failure. So when you're not able to execute the exercise in a safe manner, like if I'm doing let's say I'm doing a overhead press and I'm like leaning back and arching and twisting, we would consider that to be done.
Form failure.
Right. An 8 is, all right, I have a couple reps in the tank. And for the vast majority of your sets, they should probably be in the 7 to 8 range, where you have a couple left in the tank, right? Whenever we get to full failure, true failure with big compound exercises, just our risk for things going wrong just gets higher. If you leave
And the
one in
risk
the
versus
tank,
reward isn't there
necessarily
for
there.
the majority of us. Like,
Correct.
especially for people that want to lift heavy as they're aging, the risk for reward isn't there. Like, you're living to train another day, and training at a 10 is hard, right, and hard recovery, especially with other stressors that you have in your life, like kids and family and a job and all this other stuff. Not worth it.
So we want to give this thing, like, essentially think about it like a score, right? And you want to be 8s out of 10 with most of them. And you may, and this is very common, if you're doing 3 sets, the first set is maybe a 6 out of 10, the next set is a 8 out of 10, and the third set's an 8 out of 10, which is a good way to do it. And then the cool thing is next week, you can look back and see what you did, and you can increase it by a little bit. Maybe we increase the load by a little bit. That's probably what we'll talk about today. Or one thing that we do with clients a lot is we typically have our clients progress. So each set, they do a little bit more. So they kind of step up, right? And so let's say I do 130, 140, 150. Okay, awesome. The next week, I might go 140, 150, 155. And the next week, I might go 150, 150, 160. And so if we look at the total of those 3 sets, it's going to be increased from week to week because we take, right, that kind of first set, we maybe bump that up a little bit. And then we like to challenge on that last set a little bit more because we can really fatigue things out because we don't need any more sets to come after it. Right. And that can be an easy way to look at it is how do I do a little bit more than I did last time? So inside of functional fitness, right, we use technology, and it's progressive overload is probably one of the main reasons why we use this technology, is so that we can actually pull up what you did last time and what you've done in this cycle. Typically, we run on 6-week cycles where you do a workout 6 times, which means you're going to execute an exercise 6 different times over the course of 6 weeks. And we want to see that you are executing that exercise. Usually it's more load by the end of those 6 weeks, right? And so we can easily look back on a client's exercise and say, hey, last week, this is what you did. So we're going to give you some guidance on what you should do this week. Right. So Ashley's showing you a little bit about like what we're looking at as coaches. Right. So we can see exactly what you did, and then we can give you some suggestions. Right. And that's where the RPE comes into play too. Is because if, hey, you did a set and it's an RPE of 6, it's like, okay, that's probably a little too light. Let's bump that up the next week. We don't need to redo it this week. Right. But you can bump it up a little bit.
The other thing that I love about the tech that we use and how we use it is that I can see the sets and reps that you used. So when I am adjusting and say like you were doing sets of 10 and now you're doing sets of 12 or 15 or whatever we're doing, I know at 10s you were doing this. So at 15s, you might need to start at your first set weight, or you might need to back off a little bit. So I have a better starting point as your coach to indicate a good starting place for this sets and reps. Yep. So we're using progressive overload, and we're going to use load for example. So if you're doing a 3x8, because it's very, very easy, 3 sets, 8 reps, and this is what you're using, and then we're going to progress the next week our weight. You can increase all of them, but if you're going to increase your sets or your reps, those are other ways to progressively overload. I have the starting point for numbers. So if I went 3x8s and then the next week we went 3x10s, now our goal is to do the same weights we did at 8, and we're going to try and do them for 10. So I'm not changing the loads. All I'm doing is changing the rep scheme. So there are lots, like we were talking about, other variables. So there is a lot that you can do to change and manipulate your workout without necessarily making things heavier.
And it allows us to just make better decisions quicker, right? Like if you're just in the gym and like you don't have a ton of experience, like I have a pretty good idea on like my strength levels, and so I can just pick an exercise and have a pretty good idea on like where I should be at with loads. But I've also been strength training for the better part of like 25 years, right? And so if you're new to this, like you just don't really know what you don't know, and you don't know where you should be at with different lifts and all of that fun stuff. And so that's where just tracking things. It's going to help give you can of page back to see like, hey, and it's kind of fun to look at something like a year ago and be like, hey, what I'm doing now is like my warm-up sets or like my max effort sets a year ago, and which can be very motivating. If you're one of our clients, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, I would say like if you're one of our clients, you're going to be using the FF Coach app, right? That's our stuff that we use internally. But if you're not working out with us, which like why aren't you? Like seriously, like let's figure that out first, and then. But if you do decide that you just live too far away from one of our facilities and there's no way, and you don't even want to do one of our online programs and work with us that way, and maybe Ashley pissed you off or something, and like it's just like you're in a bad place. There are other ones out there. One of the ones that I like is the Strong app. That's a pretty good one for strength training. They do a pretty good, nice user interface. I don't think it costs very much. But again, that's a way that you can kind of digitize some of the stuff and make it a little bit easier to be able to look at history and not have to pencil through stuff. But there are a number of them out there. I do like the Strong one. I think that one's pretty good.
Interesting. So what I was going to say is that I have been, we moved into a bigger facility. So I have had a handful of new clients start lately. I'm notorious for trying to give people more weight. As everyone knows, I love to do it when your back is turned and put it down and walk away and not even tell you that I'm giving you more weight. I just made that assumption. But I have some very new to fitness people who have never lifted before. So even using weights, it is very hard to gauge how many reps they can do. So a question that we usually ask clients to kind of get an idea if we need to adjust the weight is, how many more reps do you think you could do? Or could you do 5 more? And I'm getting a lot of, I don't know. So they don't know where they should be at. So instead of progressing overloading with weight, I am adding reps as the workout goes on. I've been adding reps at the same weight until I find like, oh, that's kind of where they're at. And now we can give you a better number and get you back on the 8, 10, 12, whatever we're kind of working towards. Especially getting you comfortable with exercises. We know in the beginning of fitness, learning how to do an exercise and doing it correctly is probably more important. No, I'm going to say it is more important than you doing it heavy. Because if we can get you really good foundations with no weight and very lightweight, you're going to be able to keep those really good lifting foundations as we start giving you more and more weight. And one of the easiest ways to get better at something faster is to do more repetitions.
Yeah. So, I mean, strength training it's a skill, just like shooting a basketball is a skill, hitting a hockey puck, running, whatever. Like these are skills, right? And they're movements. And so just learning the skill, you're going to get better at it. And then you're gonna be able to do it more effectively. And so we always want to make sure that someone can execute a skill at a high level before we start to overload said skill, right? It's like just how we learn anything. And so if you get anything away from this episode, it is let's track things, right? Find a way that makes sense for you. Join a functional fitness gym, or use like something like a Strong app if you're going to do that, or just pen and paper. Whatever makes sense for you, whatever is the easiest for you, but just track, and then always think about how do I progress and do a little bit more each time. Too many people jump to doing as much as possible, where it's better to just do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I would rather have someone start at like, let's say 50% of their quote unquote max, but every week they just add a little bit to it, less than 10%, probably more around like 2 to 3%, and just keep doing that until you can no longer add it in, and then pick something else and keep moving at that. It's a really easy way to make sure that we're preventing too much stress to our system, too much stress to our tendons, too much stress to the muscle. We see this running a lot, is people just decide that like, okay, day one, I used to run 10 miles, but I haven't run in 5 years. But today I'm going to run 10 miles. And they wonder why they develop plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis and all of these other itises, because we didn't allow the body to progressively adapt to the thing that we wanted it to adapt to. So,
And, here's
long
the
game.
thing that we always talk about. What is the minimum effective dose to get you the results that you want?
And at the beginning, it is very little. It is very little, especially if you're
That's why
going
when
from
you
being
start a
very
workout routine,
sedentary.
you're so sore. Like,
Mhm.
this is why you're so sore. And that is not like, you should not feel like you can't sit down on the toilet after every workout. That is bad. Okay, we can save that for a whole nother episode too.
I like it. All right. Well, that's all we got for today. So just
Enjoy.
start tracking your workouts. See ya.